What's up, my friends? You're watching B-Boy 45, the hospital's TV and radio station here at Children's Hospital, Colorado. One of our favorite times of the week is when we get to talk to our friend Maya. Maya, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be talking to you today, but I know you're super glad to be talking to somebody else. Who do you have today on your show?
Peter Bishai.
Peter Bishai is calling in to Maya's show. Peter, thank you so much for making the time. Maya, girl, take it away.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for calling in. I've been so excited to talk to you.
Well, I am truly honored to be here, and especially with someone who seems like a super fan of our movie, which is really amazing. Yeah, so it's great. Really happy to be here.
So my first question for you is, what is the first movie that you remember watching that made you know you wanted to create movies?
Okay, that's a good question. So I got into movie loving very young. I was about 11 years old. And I always loved, movies as a little kid with, Star Wars and things like that. But then one night, the TV was on in our family room, and this old black and white movie came. I had never seen an old black and white movie or anything about it, right? I was about 11 years old. And I suddenly was like mesmerized by this black and white image, and it was the 1940s. And it turned out the movie was Casablanca, which is one of the all-time great movies. And I became just enamored with what I was seeing. And I don't know why, something about it kind of, hypnotized me. And I was sort of fascinated by that whole old Hollywood movie making. And I said to my parents, for my birthday, I want books about movie history. And Casablanca is this, great classic movie starring Humphrey Bogart, who wore a fedora hat. And so when I went to school, I got my own fedora hat and wore it in the school. That's the kind of fan I was, kind of thing. And then around the same time, the first Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie came out, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I went to see that. I was, I loved Steven Spielberg. But when I saw that movie in particular on the big screen, that was when I said to myself, I want to do what's up there. Because the movie was like, of course, this great action adventure, but it was, set all over the world. It had to do with history and archaeology. So I began to think, hey, I can learn about all these different topics while, watching this entertaining movie. And I really wanted to know how they pulled it off. And that was my first kind of like case of, maybe one day when I grow up, I'm going to be a director.
Oh, cool. So you wrote the screenplay and directed both of the movies, Colors of Heaven and The Dueling Accountant.
That's right.
So they're two very different movies with very different themes. What is your writing and development process like?
Yeah, so when I went to film school in college, and then after film school, I tried to make my own movies. Didn't do too well initially, like a lot of people. Then I wound up getting this job in England, working with a small company that would help people with their screenplays. We were called script doctors. And so that's when I really began to take really seriously the process of screenwriting. And I had my mentor, who was from there, just sort of like kind of really hone me in on the idea of story structure, that every movie is basically like a structure that has to be built, and piece by piece, and the structure has to kind of, be able to support everything that's in it without sort of falling apart. And I became fascinated by that. When I moved to New York, and then I decided to, try to make my own films, which is what I had really wanted to do since I, was 11 and saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so the first thing I did was I got a writing partner, Brendan Smith. So that was the first really important part. And I really recommend that to anyone who wants to do any kind of screenwriting, and you feel like it's really hard to kind of get it going, a great thing is to have a partner, because our process, we would sit down, we'd tell some jokes, talk about whatever movie we saw the night before, and then we would just brainstorm, throw ideas back and forth. And when you have a writing partner, it's a really great way to kind of access all the ideas that may be in your head, but you don't quite know how to put it on paper. And when you just talk it through, it's like, well, what if this happens? Okay, great. Then what happens next? Well, how about this? And then he would say something, I would say something. So that was really the essential process. And then after that process of brainstorming and talking it out one-on-one with each other, then we would go and what we did is we create an outline. Okay, an outline is a bullet point for every scene in the film. So the first scene is just one line. The first scene is this happens to the character. And then the second scene, this happens. So just you have these literally come at it with, let's say 40 or 50 bullet points. And that's the structure of the movie. And then we just go in now and write the dialogue, and then we go back and forth with it. So that's the key thing, is really coming up with the idea, finding a way to brainstorm either by yourself or with a partner. And then you just work through it. A couple of things that really help for me is music. When I love to write to music. So if I'm feeling like, well, I need to work on a really suspenseful scene, so I'll find some suspenseful music, just play it in my earphones or in the background. And that kind of, I can now start to see what's happening, So little things like that can really help any writer that wants to pursue writing.
Oh, cool. So do you visualize the movie as you were writing the screenplay?
Very much. Yeah, absolutely. It's everything is visual for me. So as I'm writing it, I'm thinking about how it looks. I'm thinking about how it sounds. Usually before that, what I've done, I should have mentioned before, is I do a lot of research. Okay. And the research, if it's like, for example, the Rapid Eye Movement, I did a ton of research on sleep and sleep deprivation and what that entails. But then also I get images. I go to Google and I look for great images that can kind of either be a setting for the film or something that inspires the look of the film. And I'll make a folder, and I'll just have those images there. And sometimes when I'll be writing at the computer, and I'll just have the image on the screen next to my screenplay page. And so I'm literally visualizing, as you say, visualizing what my thoughts in that image. So absolutely, image is critical, visual.
So how did you come up with the idea for Rapid Eye Movement?
So it turns out that even though our movie is fictional and it's, the characters are not, it actually is based on a real story. So there was in 1950, and so what happened was, when I was in college, I was in a psychology class, and in the textbook was this, it had this section on sleep and how sleep affects the brain. And they had this example of a story of this radio DJ in 1959 who did a sleep deprivation marathon in Times Square. And at the time he wanted to, he set a record of 200 hours, which was 8 days. And then the textbook recounted how he began to lose his mind, and he began to hallucinate crazy things, and he acted crazy, and people were running after him as he tried to escape. And I thought, whoa, that's a movie. There's a movie in there. That's got to be a movie somehow. Several years went by, and I thought, well, okay, there's the idea, but it needs something else. So I thought, what if I take the true story that happened and kind of use a lot of the elements of the sleep deprivation and the Times Square setting and the radio DJ and all that kind of stuff, but actually turned it into a thriller where I added the idea of this caller who is so intent on him breaking the record to raise money for charity in this wake-a-thon, as it's called. So I turned it into a thriller based on the real story. So that's the origin of it, something real that I took and added some other elements to make it a sort of a complete thriller film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you have cast members in mind as you were writing the movie? the screenplay?
Not really. You do think like occasionally, you might think, oh, what if, this actor could do it, or, but you usually think really big, like the biggest movie stars in the world kind of thing, which almost never happens. So it's like, so you kind of entertain the idea just more, but that's more just for me to kind of, like you say, to visualize what he would look like or act like, based on maybe that character. But I don't like to take it too far, because then you start to think of the character only as that actor. And the chance of getting that actor are very slim, almost none. So I'd rather have it just more open kind of thing. So it's just more just sort of a guideline, but nothing too specific.
Oh, yeah. So Times Square plays a big part in the movie. Were there any challenges to filming there?
So the first challenge and the biggest challenge was getting permission. That's number one, because even though we're this kind of small indie film, we're really the first and only film in history to actually film almost an entire movie in Times Square with an actual set. Like, the actual set, the booth that he's in, that was all built and brought there. So that's never been done. And I felt like most people, they would sort of shoot in a studio, they would use green screen, things like that. But I really wanted this to be authentic. I wanted it to feel real. I wanted it to feel like you're actually there. This is really happening. And also the idea that, well, you know what, if we could film it in Times Square, then it would really be an accomplishment in itself. So that was what we set out to do. So we had to contact the New York City Mayor's Office for Film, which issues the permits. And they were like, no, that's, no, that can't happen. And then we got the idea that, well, you know what, if this booth is put on the back of a truck, okay, which is what we did. We had a big flatbed truck, and the whole thing was there. So we could literally just drive in and drive out. We're not leaving the thing there overnight. We're not taking up huge amounts of space. And all of the lighting was built into the set. So there's no additional lighting, all handheld camera. And we said, you know what, we could actually do this. And he said, okay. Then he said, well, you got to talk to the Times Square Alliance. Times Square Alliance is this organization that runs all of Times Square, all the events, all of the security, everything. And they said, the guy at the mayor's office said, they're the ones that have to give the approval for the Times Square in particular. So, okay, so we went to Times Square and we give the whole plan, because immediately he said, no way, not a chance, nothing. No, you'll never be, you can't do that. And I said, well, listen, we're going to put the whole thing on a truck. We're going to drive in. So all you got to do is just give us a parking permit. And he was like, that's interesting. He was kind of intrigued by our ingenuity, right?
Yeah.
And he said, all right, let me think about it. We got back for a second meeting and he said, listen, if you can break up your schedule so that it's not like, 2 straight weeks, whatever, but like 2 days here, 3 days here, could you do that? I said, absolutely. So we worked out a schedule to work around their events and everything. And we got the permit. And not only that, they gave us complete access to the space right there in the middle of Times Square. They had police help us with everything. It was unbelievable. New York City is an amazing city to film in. They don't even charge you anything. Like it's crazy like how good it is for filmmakers. So if you're a young filmmaker and you want to make a really cool movie, come to New York City, because you've got this incredible backdrop, and the city makes it really easy for you to film there if you have a great idea. Once we were there in Times Square, it was actually surprisingly really smooth. It was a lot of fun, actually. I really, really enjoyed it because we're surrounded by this most amazing place, which I love Times Square. And we were really organized, which is really important. And we had many, many, many people, passing by that just wanted to be in the film, kind of thing. So we had all these, I always say we had, 5,000 free extras every day because they just wanted to be there.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, my sister is actually a film major in college, and so I'm gonna let her know that that she has to film in New York.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, do you have any upcoming projects that you can tell us about?
So right now I'm in what's called the development phase, which is we're writing a few things and different things. So one is a TV series that we're developing that is another kind of thriller but it's set in the world of the antiquities black market, people that steal, loot antiquities from around the world, like in Egypt and places like that. And it's kind of a heist kind of story. So that's developing. Then I'm also developing another kind of, I want to do another New York type of suspense film like Rapid Eye Movement, but this time all set in the subway system of New York City. And it's kind of I can't give too much away, but it's kind of like a monster movie set in the New York City subway system. And it's all about people's ability to work together in a crisis situation in order to overcome this obstacle. And so that's being developed. So I'm hoping next year we'll be able to go into production with all that.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So what is your favorite movie of all time?
Okay, easy answer for me in that one, because it's always been my favorite. My number one favorite movie is Lawrence of Arabia, which is the great epic true story. It was made in 1962, set in the Middle Eastern desert, about this great character, T.E. Lawrence. So that's my, and that actually goes right back to your original question of like what movie inspired me. So after I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark at about 11 years old, I said I got the bug for movie making. Then when I was 16, then I saw Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen. And that absolutely solidified my journey in life. I said, that's it. I have to do that. Nothing else can get in my way. So that's when I committed to wanting to be a director. So that's my number one favorite.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I just I have to stop the interview for really quickly to just fangirl for a minute about just about Rapid Eye Movement. It's one of my all-time favorite, not even just thrillers, one of my favorite movies.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've watched it so many times since it first came out. I just love it. So so
that's great. What is it about it that you particularly, like about it or attracts you about it?
I don't think I can't really think of just like one thing. I love this story, and I love that it keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Right.
And like I don't like horror movies at all, but I love thrillers.
Yeah.
And so this one, like the first time I watched it with my family, I remember I was like I was creeped out by it, but it was one of those that I love that when it's a movie that like kind of scares you, but then you can talk yourself down from it.
Yeah.
So you don't stay scared. So I could kind of like rationalize it in my head. So then, yeah.
Well, I love hearing that, because that's what I set out to do, which is, make it a kind of an accessible thriller. It's not gory. It's not, it's just really about, it's about, what it's really about for me is human endurance. It's about how far can a person be pushed or push themselves in order to survive and make sacrifices and accept the reality around them in order to achieve a greater good, and so even though it's a thriller and it has suspense and it makes you kind of on the edge of your seat, I wanted all that, but I also wanted it to tell this human story where it's a story about a guy who tries to break the world's record to stay awake, which is 11 days, right? And it's so the idea of staying awake that long is kind of like a metaphor for any kind of endeavor we do in life, that if you persist, if you endure, if you don't give up and you keep going. And I think you're an amazing testament to that. And so maybe other people will feel inspired as well, that, just never, 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 never give up, because we can actually do far more than we think we can, if we just are dedicated and persist. So that's really what the movie's about.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. So what not so great movie do you secretly love?
What not so secret do I love? Okay. Well, when I was growing up in the 80s, there was a very infamous movie called Ishtar. Okay. And Ishtar is like the movie that's considered one of the biggest bombs of all time. And I love Ishtar. Like, I think Ishtar is one of the funniest movies ever made. And whenever people talk about Ishtar, it's almost like Ishtar has become like a metaphor for anything that's really blown up badly and it's really terrible. And I love that movie. So I can watch that over and over again. So that would be one. Yeah. I will always defend it. I will always defend it.
I always will too. That is one of my favorite movies.
Wow.
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And so I am so happy to hear you say that, because everybody when I say it's like I love that movie, I always feel a little bit judged by them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Like when my mom saw it when it first came out, and she loved it. Like, she was just crying from laughing the whole time, and then found out that everybody hated it.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, she showed the movie to me and my sister, because she had always told us about it. And so we just
That's hilarious. I can't believe it.
in love with it. It's so funny.
But you know what? I actually think it's cool to have a movie that no one else really like. It's almost like our own little. So now you and I are in this exclusive club together, right? Where we have the Ishtar fan club. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
My mom is gonna be very excited when I tell her I found somebody else who loves Ishtar.
Excellent. All right. Perfect.
Yeah. So, what would the title of the soundtrack of your life be?
The soundtrack of my life. Well, I would say that's a really great question. So my wife and I, we've been married for like 14 years now, and our song, we have our own song, and our own song, I think the title of that would be the soundtrack of our life. And the song is How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees.
Oh.
So I think How Deep Is Your Love is, my life is surrounded by love everywhere, and love of my family, and love for movies, and love for God, love for the world and all of its problems. And so, but I love that song because it's like, not just because it's, it's personal for my wife and I, but it's just a great question. How deep is your love? Like we can say we love, but the question, how deep is it? Like, how deep will it go? How far will you go? How much of a sacrifice are you willing to make in life? And I think life without sacrifice is not worth it. We need to, then we get amazing rewards when we make big sacrifices, because we can do it. We can definitely do it.
Yeah. So is there a line from a movie, book, or a song that's always stuck with you or inspires you?
Okay, that's a great. Let me think. A line. Let's see. Like a line of dialogue from a movie.
Yeah.
Anything, yeah. I'm sure there's lots of them. In going back to Casablanca, that first Blanca movie that really got me. You know, there's at the end. You know, for those who haven't seen, I want to give it much away, but at the end, you know, the hero has to kind of make a sacrifice for the greater good, and you know, he says that to the woman that he loves, you know, the problems of two people don't amount to a hill of beans in this world, and what he means by that is that there are things bigger than just our own personal issues and problems. You know, if we can see things, if we can, and in that case, it was about the war, World War II, and fighting against evil Nazis, and you know, but it's really about everything so that our problems, they're real. We have real problems in life. We all do, you know, but in the grand scheme of things, if we can see beyond, if we can see the bigger picture, then that's something really valuable. So that line really inspired me quite a bit.
Cool. Yeah. So what motivates you to keep going when you're having a bad day?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things. That's a really good question for everybody because we all need that motivation. You know, number one is just to realize that every day we have is a gift, and you know, just to take it one day at a time and just keep going. I think being knowing that not I always remind myself that it's okay to fail, you know, because as a filmmaker, I've failed so many times. Like you spend years struggling to make movies, and it's really hard to raise money, and it's really hard to have successful movies. It's just hard, and you know, like any artistic pursuit, we can all relate to that, you know. But I always remember that it's like, you know what, you've got to fail. You got to fail in order to succeed ultimately. And so that always motivates me. Just remember, and that keeps me humble because we've got to be humble when we realize that we don't actually, you know, I'm not entitled to anything really. It's just a gift. So that's motivating. And then of course I've got, you know, 3 amazing daughters, young kids, very young. The youngest one just turned 1 this week, and so just that's those smiles, you know, is motivation enough, you know, because everything else doesn't really matter, you know. So and just to enjoy it, you just enjoy the process.
Cool. Yeah. So my last question for you is, who do you consider to be a real life superhero and why?
Okay, so a real life superhero, I would say anybody who gives up comfort in their life to help others is definitely a superhero. So that's number one. I think the greatest superheroes are 2 types of people. Number one are teachers, and number 2 are nurses. I think that I just, speaking about my kids, you know, whenever my kids are born, when we go through that process, everyone talks about the doctor, and they're great doctors, of course, but it's always the nurses that the ones that are really running the show. You know, they're the ones that are taking care of everything, and they know the answers, and and whenever we leave, it's just like, wow, weren't those nurses just amazing? So nurses are superheroes, and then teachers. You know, we've been blessed in the public school system here in New York. Never had a bad teacher for our kids, and they're just amazing. You know. So I would say that anyone who is dedicated to making others have a better life, that they're superheroes, absolutely. And it's fun to have celebrities and movie stars and pop stars, and you know, but the real superheroes are those are my superheroes for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, my mom and my sister are my best friends and my superheroes.
Yes, yes, that's a blessing. Yeah. My wife is absolutely, I call her super mom because she is one of those people that does everything. She's an amazing executive at work. She's an amazing mom. She's the class teacher, the class parent. She helps others, and so I'm blessed there as well. It's just she's absolutely a superhero for sure. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for calling in. I had the best time talking with you. So
Well,
thank
you.
you
It's
so
been
much.
cool. Yeah. And I really, really, really thank you for supporting the movie and being such a fan of it, because that's why we make it, for people to just love it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing the movie to life. And so
Right.
it's one of those movies that is like, I watch when like I'm not feeling good, or like I just need to escape. It's one of those movies that just
Right,
like
right.
totally sucks me in and
Right.
makes me forget about everything. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, that actually inspires me to keep going and to make another great movie, hopefully very soon. Yeah. So
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Peter, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you.
We so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.